Would you look at that? There's smiles on everyone's faces this evening. It must mean that Celtic have finally won a Glasgow derby. Welcome to the State of Scottish Football. My name is Colin Watt and I'm delighted to be joined by these three handsome gentlemen this evening to dissect what was a fantastic game last night. Well, fantastic depending on how you look at it, but for me, I walked out of that stadium with a big smile on my face, and to be honest, guys, I think if you were a Rangers persuasion, you walk away from that pretty happy that it was only 3. I mean, Greg, at one point it looked as if Alan McGregor was single-handedly keeping Rangers in that game.
Yeah, it kind of felt like at times when Hearts played Celtic the other week, where you thought half-time you're lucky to only be going in a couple of goals down. I think Rangers definitely felt to be going in 3-0 down. It could have been 5-6. I mean, in my group chats as well, it was going, could be 6, 7, 8, 9. You know, it was that sort of game. I think in terms of the momentum, for me, it's a massive, massive boost for Celtic, and one that thoroughly deserved on the balance of play.
I mean, I'll sit here with a big smile on my face for the whole of this hour as we discuss this game, but there's plenty of great comments coming in early doors. Scott Howe comes in to say, get Ange on a 6-year deal. I mean, you could see the passion coming from him last night. Kevin Graham came in to say, evening lads, evening Kevin, good to have you here. And Studs Lanigan kind of makes a good point, and this is the one I want to start with tonight. When you're a tad disappointed with 3-0, it shows how far Ange has taken this Celtic team. Craig, see when you look back on last season, Celtic finished 25 points behind Rangers. Rangers, it has to be said, were utterly dominant last year. Best team by a country mile. What's happened this year? Because, I mean, they've hit the heights and now they're coming fast down the kind of standards. I mean, Borna Barisic sitting on his backside as the third goal goes in. That is not what you expect from a Rangers side that was so dominant last year.
I think there's a few different ways you can look at it. I mean, when you think about last season, their sole objective, it wasn't so much to win the league, it was more to stop Celtic winning the league, obviously, to stop the 10. So now that sort of carrot has been taken away, that's I think that's why Gerrard Upton left when he did, because the sole objective was to, like I said, not so much to get 55 in inverted commas.
That was the Neil Lennon air quotes coming back out there.
But, you know, more to stop Celtic for getting the 10. So now that there's no, I suppose, you know, going for the Champions League group stages isn't really as satisfying as stopping your biggest rivals for doing what no one else has done in the league before. And I also think it's the Gerrard effect as well. I mean, we played Rangers at Easter Road quite early on after Gerrard left. It might have been maybe second or third game, and I felt they were a totally different side even that early. To the point where I noticed that Tavernier and Barisic almost didn't cross the halfway line. And when you think that a Rangers team for last season, you know, Tavernier got about almost, you know, at least 15 goals last season. So it's the change of style that Van Bronckhorst has brought in, and I think in the short term anyway, I know they were on quite a decent run recently, you know, of almost being like 1-0 a bit of times and shut up shop, but no, there just seems to be too much around the whole stopping the 10, changing the manager halfway through the season that sort of caused this, like Greg says, such a massive, massive change in momentum in Celtic's favour.
Yeah, and we're going to go through some of the comments as well. We're going to go through the goals in the second half. But we are also going to be talking about the David Goodwillie scandal later on. So if anyone's coming in with the chats on that, we'll be talking about that later. Tom comes in asking, where's David? Well, David is actually currently recovering from COVID. He managed to catch COVID from a Dens Park pie. So if you are out watching football this weekend, just be careful. You could catch COVID for a pie. No, we wish Dave all the best, and he'll be back on the channel very soon. N comes in on YouTube to say, I'm absolutely buzzing. Yesterday was the first time discovering and sub to the channel. Wish I knew about it before. Well, it's great to have you on board. And Kevin Graham comes back in to say, you're disappointed, but the second half shows how far we have to go. Also see second half versus Hearts last week. Now, Graham, I'm going to speak to you about that. When you take a look at that Celtic performance against Hearts last week, 2-0 up at half-time. It was a very similar first 45 minutes at Tynecastle as what was at Celtic Park last night. Celtic come out the traps, and within 4 minutes they find themselves a goal up, and it's something we've seen under Ange Postecoglou since he's taken over at Celtic. It's as soon as that first whistle goes, Celtic are on the offensive, and if the teams aren't ready, they'll get caught out cold.
Yeah, the way Celtic started that game last night, they've started with such intensity, such pace, and I don't think there's a lot of teams in Scotland could live with them. Rangers, Hearts, anyone. The way they started that game last night, they were up for it right from the start. I mean, Celtic, that first half could have, as the guys have said, that could have been anything by half-time but for Alan McGregor. Celtic were so good last night in that first half. And I know we'll talk about some of the players later on, but, I mean, for a guy like Reo Hatate to come in and do what he's done last night on his Old Firm derby debut was incredible. Guys like Matt O'Reilly, Juranovic, just sensational stuff. I think it's understandable why the pace dropped a bit second half. You know, the game was essentially one first half. They'd done what they had to do. So they just let Rangers have the ball second half, knowing that Rangers didn't do a lot with it. But just the way that Celtic come out and fly out the traps is unbelievable. And last night, that's probably one of the best first halves I think I've seen from a Celtic side for a very long time.
You've mentioned his name, so I'm just going to put it out there. Who's got the best word to describe that Reo Hatate performance last night? Everybody was spooning over him on the chat. He's just came in, he's been a breath of fresh air to Scottish football, so whoever's got the best opinion of him can have the next word.
Ballon d'Or. Ballon d'Or.
Ballon d'Or, Greg, take it away.
Listen, that performance against him was his first half. I think, given the fact that it was his first sort of experience in Scottish football, we hear players that get involved in Scotland and kind of are caught by the pace, caught by the physical nature of it. But it's like he'd been playing here for kind of his whole career and came through the sort of system. Then, again, I got to see him up close and personal at Tynecastle. And for me, I know some Celtic fans, including yourself, would be calling it, thought it's kind of subpar that first half. But for me at the stadium, it was amazing. Like everything that you were seeing off the ball, it was him. The 2 goals, obviously, his opener, it was pressing from him. And even from the second goal is kind of pressing as well to kind of lead to that pass out to the right-hand side. Great. And then watching it last night as well, watching that performance, he's just like, I mean, obviously as a kind of Scottish football fan, I love to see players that kind of take the league, that kind of are just a joy to watch. And again, I thought Kyogo was great for, you know, the first half of the season. Jota as well. Hadn't seen as much of him, but I kind of thought Kyogo was a player that kind of, as a kind of neutral, was my favourite player in the league. But Hatate, honestly, great player. I just hope he's got some sort of Scottish granny or Scottish granddad or something. Like, we need to cap him before Japan.
I mean, there's some of the stuff that was going on in the chat. Everybody's changing their fantasy names to Minson Hatate and Hatate scones and stuff like that. But no, it's just been a revelation into Scottish football, Craig. And we'll go through the second goal. So the second goal starts from a fantastic bit of play from Rangers on the left-hand side. Ball gets played through, and Joe Hart, sharp as attacked off his line to take the ball off of Scott Arfield's feet. 30 seconds later, the ball's at Hatate's feet and it's in the back of the net. And the passing, the build-up play, that is exactly what Ange Postecoglou's been trying to install at Celtic, and what a lot of people would say is the definition of Ange ball.
Aye, and like, I suppose it sort of goes along with what Graeme said as well in terms of the start that Celtic made. You know, that, I mean, we seen it at Easter Road as well when Celtic were 3-0 up and coasting at half-time. That seems to be very much the, you know, there's none of this, you know, get into the game, feel it out for 10, 15 minutes, let's see what happens. Obviously, Postecoglou wants to get his team attacking for the first minute, and you've seen that against Rangers last night. And like you say, the pass and play, but I mean, the finish is, it looks like one of those finishes that shouldn't beat a keeper. But because of how precise it's been hit, even though it's at McGregor's near post, I think he's maybe cited by, is it maybe Goldson? Has he maybe used Goldson almost as like a shield? He's
used Goldson to curl the ball around him, yeah.
It's not even, it doesn't even seem like it curled that much. It was almost like not even a knuckle. It was weird. It's a weird technique he used to hit. But it shows you how good and how precise that the strike was, that McGregor's away waving to somebody in the crowd because he's got absolutely no chance.
I don't think McGregor had any fans in that crowd last night. He definitely didn't to anybody.
One of the ball boys behind the goal seemed quite pleased he was there.
I mean, we've seen it now from Hatate. his first game against Hibs, his passing range was world class for someone who was playing their first game. Then he goes to Tynecastle and he puts one past Craig Gordon before he can even dive for it. And then last night he saw what he could do to someone who has been in fantastic form, apart from obviously the weekend there in Alan McGregor. And it's the difference that having that sort of player can make, Graeme, because when you look at it, Celtic going into this game, we're saying there's no Tom Rogic, there's no David Turnbull. These guys have been playing 90 minutes week in, week out, 2-3 times a week. And Ange even came out after the game last night saying, this isn't Hatate at full strength, this isn't him at full fitness, they're still building him up. How good a player could they potentially have in Reo Hatate?
I think the scary thing is he's only 24, so he's only going to get better. I mean, I look at a midfielder and I think, are you comfortable with the ball at your feet? Well, yes, he is. Can you defend? Yes, he can. Can you attack? Yes, he can. He can do pretty much everything. I mean, for a guy to come over a completely different country and perform the way he has so far, and in your first Old Firm debut, it reminds me a little bit of Moravchik when he was at Celtic, when he scored a couple in his debut against Rangers as well. He's got that kind of look about him. And even the way he scored that second goal, it's a magnificent finish. And you look at his reaction afterwards, it's like, that's just what I do. That's what I'm always going to do. He's just got that swagger about him.
Around these parts, Graeme. It's Glasgow.
Yes.
That's Graeme on his first warning for tonight. We're only 11 minutes in. We'll see how the rest of tonight's show goes.
Okay, I'll rephrase that to Glasgow Derby then. But he's just an unbelievable player. He's a top talent. And as I said, the scary thing is he's only 24, and you think, how much better is this guy going to get? It is frightening.
Tom Messi coming in to say Hatate's a 33% Iniesta, 33% Scholes, 33% Nakamura, and 1% God. He felt like a god for Celtic fans last night, it has to be said. Someone we haven't mentioned yet gets mentioned here by Studs Lanigan. Remarkable how Matt O'Reilly's fitted in. It's as if he's been at Celtic Park for years. Now, apart from having some of the best post-match interviews, he is someone who's really impressing in that Celtic midfield. We mentioned earlier on, Greg, Tom Rogic obviously missing on international duty. You wouldn't have noticed that last night. It was almost as if we've managed to clone him and put him into the midfield.
Yeah, again, I think I said on one of the shows when he first signed, I didn't know if it was going to be a first-team player, and then after the game at Tynecastle, I was kind of saying he was already adapted well to Celtic in terms of his game management there, but listen, in terms of a footballer, he's absolutely fantastic in terms of how he's, again, we're talking around Hatate, these signings that, if it's Ange Postecoglou, if it's the scouting department, deserve massive credit, because coming into that, it's like he'd been there for years. Again, coming from kind of League One in England, you do kind of worry around the sort of like the expectations, the pressure there, because when you're at MK Dons, all due respect, they play in a third full stadium every second week, and they go to some grounds 5,000-6,000, where again, if they win, it's great because they're away from home, but playing at Celtic Park with the expectations there, where every time you're on the ball, you need to do something decisive in terms of a defence split and pass, set a chance up, get us moving forward, and he does that. And probably the other thing as well is Jota's got kind of competition in the Handsome Stakes, where I think if Celtic want to kind of capitalise as well, I'm sure they could do a kind of rival calendar in terms of, or in fact, team them up. You can have Jota and Matt O'Reilly calendars. I'm sure they will sell well.
I think what you're trying to say here is he could be the Andrew Ridgely to the George Michael. Is that exactly what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it couldn't have put it better.
MPH comes in to say, seen a Celtic fan earlier with the username Haggis, Neeps and Hatates. Well, I mean, we've not finished with Hatate yet because his game wasn't finished. Already having 2 goals, he puts an assist, a fantastic crossover for the third goal. Abada coming in at the back post. As we mentioned earlier, Barisic basically sitting down, looked as if he was ready to go to the toilet, the way he was sort of positioned over that 6-yard line. And I don't know what it was, whether he was injured or whether he just sort of gave up in it, Craig, but it's very unlike the sort of experience you expect from Borna Barisic to just let his man go at the back post.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how long was it until half time? Was it like 42 or 43?
It was 43 something in the 44th minute.
I just think that Barisic in particular was just blown, and he was just, it was pure tiredness, because like we've already said, for the start that Celtic made. On the sort of right-hand side, between Juranovic and Abada in that first half.
I don't believe it. I think Hatate's passing's that good. He's managed to knock Greg's internet out. That's superb. No, you're right. It did look as if he was tiring towards the end of that first half, and we'll mention how he came off at half time. But even at that, you can't just stop and let your man come across you.
Yeah, I think he's possibly not expecting the cross to go where it is, because Hatate's he's quite near the corner flag, isn't he, when he plays the ball in?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not expecting the ball to sort of come out as far as it does, and obviously he's not even checked if Abada's on his blind side. So it is really poor defending, but I think it was pure tiredness for the way that Celtic relentlessly attacked in that first half, because as Graeme said, and as I'm sure the guys in the chat are saying as well, that was 3 going on 6 or 7 at half time. Never mind the second half, just at half time, because of the way that Celtic played.
The person that could have made it 4, 5, or 6 is Greek striker Georgios Giakoumakis, or however Kevin Graham's tried to spell that here, Giakoumakis. And he must have known that Greg was just about to disappear, because the question comes to the 3 panel members. Thoughts on Giakoumakis? I mean, I thought he put himself about pretty well last night, got himself into some dangerous positions. Alan McGregor made a couple of really, really good saves to stop him from scoring. The best one probably when he outmuscles Bassey to get onto the header in the box. One that if he just put it either side of McGregor, it was probably in the back of the net. But Celtic went into this game with a bit of concern after his performance on Saturday. Graeme, I think he kind of led the line pretty well.
Yeah, I watched him at Tynecastle and I thought the same thing. He obviously got his goal and I thought he led the line really well. I thought up against Suter, he kind of bullied Suter a little bit. And I thought again last night he did the same thing. I thought he led the line really well. I thought he was a constant threat. As you say, he's had a couple of really good chances. And I think he will be a really good player for Celtic. It's going to take time. But I think he looked very, very impressive last night. He probably deserved a goal, to be honest. And as I say, that save from McGregor, he gets up so well to get that ball on target. It's a great save from McGregor. But I think all round, his game was actually really good last night. Whether I don't think he'll start many games when Kyogo comes back, because obviously you've got Kyogo and Maeda. So he might not start many games. But while he's been playing, I think he's done all right for Celtic so far.
Yeah, and Craig, when you look at it, his job was to put himself about there, cause a bit of trouble, and let the other guys kind of get in behind the Rangers defence. It's exactly what he done. His job was complete. But as you say, when Kyogo or Maeda comes back, they'll probably take that position. It's not the way Ange wanted to play, but it was set up perfectly for how Celtic attacked the game yesterday.
It was. I mean, I was, as I said to you guys, I was at Celtic Park on Saturday, thanks to, I might having a spare ticket. Not before anybody comes in and says it's because I could afford the bus fare. That's not true. Celtic
or because he's going to see his big team.
Celtic are not my big team. But for where I was in the ground, sort of behind the goals, I'm not familiar with the stands. Well, I sent you a photo, so you can explain.
You were in the north. You were in the north stand. Yeah.
So the north stand lower, and the people that were sitting around weren't having Giakoumakis at all, based on his performance against Dundee United. But games like last night, they're set for certain players. Certain players live up to that sort of big game expectation, that atmosphere, that intensity. They thrive off it. But I would be, you're not the top goal scorer in the Eredivisie if you're a poor player, especially if you're scoring those goals for a team that I think did Venlo get relegated.
Yeah, they did. Season. Yeah. Yep.
So, there's definitely not only a player, but a top-class goal scorer in there as well. But just with the way that Celtic want to play, I think Maeda, or more especially Kyogo, will definitely suit that front row better than what he will. Maybe he just needs an extra wee bit of time to acclimatise to Scottish football.
We have 150 watching live, which is a great audience for us here on the State of Scottish Football. If you are watching, Share the video with your friends. Let's grow our audience even bigger. Like the video. Leave us a comment in the section. Liking the video really, really helps us. It gets us on more people's YouTube feeds so that they can maybe catch the show if they've never catched it before. There's some fantastic contributors. Not myself, but the rest of the guys. They're all brilliant. So
don't do yourself a disservice, Colin. Come on,
do help the lads out, as well as Jenna and Amy. Back on Giakoumakis here. Jason Lee, Kyogo's like a scalpel, Gigi's like a chainsaw. That's kind of the way it looked last night. Paul Byrne with a kind of interesting approach, bar a penalty save and 2 wonder saves, he'd be on 6 goals and 6 starts. I mean, you look at it, I'm guessing the penalty save, if he could take that back, I mean, he'd put it in any other position than when he put it. The wonder save, I'm guessing one was the game on Saturday against Dundee United, which Siegrist, I do think, makes a fantastic save, and McGregor kept him out last night. But it's one of these things, I think the goals will come for him. It's just whether he keeps getting the opportunities with Maeda and Kyogo back into fitness very soon. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. I wonder if we've got the boy Greg back. How's it going? Are we good? Greg, can you hear us?
Yes. As I said, I was about to slag off Rangers. I had some material lined up, and then I think some of Rangers supporting friends have mucked up with my Wi-Fi.
Slag off your big team. Don't be silly.
we were just saying as well that Craig was seeing his big team on Saturday, so if you're getting a chance to see 2 of your big teams this weekend, we'll maybe cover that later on. So 3-0 half time, Celtic go in, already having had 6 shots on target. Rangers only having had the 1 from Ryan Kent in the first half. Now, when you look at it, the big players that Rangers had last night, Ryan Kent, Amad Diallo, Glenn Kamara, Joe Aribo. The big thing about that first half was every single one of them was kept very quiet, Greg. I mean, I don't know if Amad Diallo will be bringing out a 45-minute sort of clip on his skills and passes from the first half of that game.
Yeah, I like when players try to show off, kind of showcase their skills on Instagram or Twitter or whatnot, but that highlight reel will be very, very quick. There'll be nothing there on the back of that. But, I think going into it, when you've got guys like Amad Diallo going into this, in terms of having a chance, no Fashion Sakalis came on as well a little bit, but there's guys here that probably are new to the Glasgow derby that aren't aware of kind of the, you've heard players as well say, I've been in derbies, the Celtic Rangers, I can take some stride, and then coming off, even Hatate last night saying he was blown away, Matt O'Reilly as well. And you look to the Rangers experience guard, the title winning players, the guys like Barisic, and it was just abject, absolutely. I know somebody put a comment in there where Goldson had said the team had lost their hunger after the last season, and then after the semi-final defeat against Hibs. And I have to say, I think that's right. Guys like Goldson are thinking about playing for leaving the end of the season. Barisic has probably had chances as well, or probably wants to go away. I think he actually got up and left during the game, to be honest, because he wasn't there. And then you've kind of got guys that are looking around. There's no real leaders, I don't think, in terms of that Rangers team. It was kind of until Ryan Jack came on there. And I know obviously much has been said that Rangers were a different beast in the second half, different proposition. But I think games 3-0, you've won at half time. It's kind of game management. It's kind of letting them have the ball, and say you kind of be a bit more selective in terms of when you break forward. But there's a massive dress to pick up this morning for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, and if they're pinning the hopes on Ryan Jack coming back in, who I think will add to that midfield, Aaron Ramsey, and then Alfredo Morelos. I'll be interested to see what the other lads think in terms of those guys coming in, if it's going to make a massive difference to them.
Graeme, it's interesting. Greg mentions the captaincy there, and James Tavernier has been he's one who wins over the Rangers support, and then he gets some stick from him, and then he wins him over again, and then he gets some stick from him. I don't think he is a captain. I don't think if you're going into a battle, like you do go into a battle for these Glasgow derbies, you don't want someone like James Tavernier, who I don't think kind of puts himself into a tackle, doesn't get himself in the ref's face, doesn't command any respect from the players around him. I would say Ryan Jack done more of that when he came on in the second half. James Tavernier was almost like a wasted jersey for Rangers last night, and when you look at it, the captaincy means so much in a game like Celtic Rangers, and having the ability to say to Callum McGregor last night, you can play, that was almost as if Celtic were 1-0 up before they'd stepped onto the park. Even as he came out looking like Zorro, or some other comparisons that we can't say because they've been hilarious, and the memes that I've seen, Phantom of the Opera, I guess you can work that one out for yourself.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
I'll be chuckle with that one.
But as soon as Callum McGregor stepped onto that park, you knew he was giving his all for 90 minutes. Within the first 5, he threw himself into a 50-50 and won it. That set the tone for last night.
100%. You know, maybe Rangers should have splashed the cash on our defender rather than midfield. They don't actually need in the first place, but hey, who knows? I've always thought Tavernier was a very good player going forward. I've never thought he was a great defender. And I think I can understand a lot of Rangers fans that don't want him as captain because, you know, last night that really wasn't a captain's performance. But then most of that Rangers team were very, very poor last night. I mean, Borna Barisic, watching that game last night, and I've mentioned that a few times to mates as well, every time Abada got that ball, I noticed that Borna Barisic was never touch tight. He was giving Abada so much time and space, he was never getting close to him, and Abada had a field day. You look at Callum McGregor, you know, there was no chance he wasn't playing that game last night. You know, I'm pretty sure that if Postecoglou said to McGregor, you want to play this game, he would have said, aye, count me in. I don't care if I've got a face mask on, I'm playing this game. That's what you want from a captain, a leader. And I just don't think at times that Tavernier delivers that. Yes, he's a very, very good player. I think defensively, I don't think he's brilliant. But, you know, Celtic had pretty much 11 captains in that field last night, and Rangers didn't have any, apart from when Ryan Jack came on. And listen, the game's done it 3-0 down. But Ryan Jack gave Rangers a little bit more bite about them. And to be fair, I actually thought Sakala, when he came on as well, had a bit more fight about him. But just through that Rangers team, they just looked like they lacked any kind of desire and hunger last night. And Celtic had that in abundance last night, right for the start.
Yeah, the influence of Callum McGregor on that team last night, Craig, it can't be denied. There was a long talk whether he would be anywhere near fit for that, but he just offered something in that Celtic midfield that Rangers didn't seem to have. And the question that a lot of people were asking is, even though he wasn't fit, is it a psychological thing that Rangers should have put Aaron Ramsey on the bench last night just to sort of try and even up the psychological stakes?
100%. I think we might have discussed it on the Team of the Year show when we said about how McGregor's really stepped up since Scott Brown's been away, you know, since being given the responsibility as Celtic captain. And you've seen that last night. Well, I suppose you've seen it since the summer, but more so last night. I don't recall what minute it was, but I think Rangers had a chance to attack down the left-hand side, and McGregor was right in Barisic's face to the point where Barisic looked to cut inside, went back, tried to cut inside again. It must have happened about 3 or 4 times, and McGregor chased him the whole way. And then it was almost like he roared at him when he passed the ball back to McGregor.
Do you want to repeat what he said to him?
I don't know what he said. I couldn't. I've no idea.
It was because this is a family show, we won't. But basically, he called him a big scaredy cat in true Scottish fashion.
Well, that tells you the difference between, you know, the captain, you know, the one captain and the other captain. You could never imagine Tavernier doing something like that. I could imagine Ryan Jack doing something like that, but not Tavernier, and that's the big difference. I mean, I was baffled that Rangers never put Ramsey even on the bench, even if there was no indication of him getting on. Just like you say, so he's there, you know. And even if it is, you know, tight with 10-15 minutes to go, you're not telling me that Aaron Ramsey can't come on in a game and make a difference with 10-15 minutes to go. They've brought him in primarily to win the league. Mm-hmm. That game last night has turned the tables completely in terms of, even though it's only a point, psychologically it's worth more than a point.
They're chasing them.
Yeah,
you know, that's Rangers now chasing. And the daft thing is, there's 9 subs there's teams that kind of put 2 goalkeepers and sometimes to fill the bench. And as you're right, in terms of, so I was going to say that all the Rangers fans in the stadium, I mean, Bobby Madden would have been probably clapping him as he was warming up during the match at the sides. But it's just mad, you know. I think going into this as well, it's an expensive outlay for Rangers, and I mean, I know we don't know the finances of Rangers. I think nobody really knows in terms of the finances. They've not got a good track record in managing finances anyway. But I just think that straight away, is Aaron Ramsey going to come into this now? They've got 2 tough games. Rangers have got Hearts and then Hibs, and these are games where Hearts and Hibs will be going to Ibrox now with no fear and be in amongst up for a fight. And is Aaron Ramsey that sort of player? I know we've had players come up from England and have kind of struggled with pace a bit. I don't know. My feeling is that he probably could struggle with it.
Yeah, I mean, the second half, Celtic sort of took their foot off the gas. They kind of let Rangers play as much football as they wanted, but even at that, if you're a Rangers fan watching it and you're going, well, Celtic let us have the second half, and apart from Ryan Jack hitting the bar and probably Connor Goldson's header in the dying seconds, they didn't manage to do anything with it. And that must be extremely frustrating as a Rangers fan to think, well, Celtic just let us do it and that's all we could muster up. And it does really go back, to me, it's got so many similarities to the League Cup semi-final against Hibs, where Hibs came out the door flying, put Rangers right back in their place, and even though they got that goal before half-time, Rangers done nothing in the whole second half, despite having so much of the ball, despite having as many balls out wide to cross it in as possible. They couldn't do anything with it, and it's almost as if, Graeme, that they just don't have a plan B that they can turn to. If plan A doesn't work, it's like, well, let's try doing plan A even better.
Yeah, it looked like that. I mean, I think the Rangers players and Van Bronckhorst must have gone at half-time thinking, what on earth has happened here? You know, they're being absolutely outplayed. And but for McGregor, I mean, that was an absolute hammering. But I think second half, I mean, Van Bronckhorst, fair play to him, he's made 3 changes. I think he had to make something, he had to do something. But again, as you said, it didn't really make any difference. I mean, Celtic were happy just to let Rangers have the ball and think, right, if you get to a certain point, you know, we'll stop you. And Rangers had no answer. I mean, Ryan Kent was dreadful last night. I don't think he offered anything at all. And I think he's been poor for weeks. On the other side, again, you know, they didn't have any penetration at all. And it was no surprise to me that, you know, I think if Celtic had wanted to, I think they could have stepped up whenever they wanted to. But they were happy just to let Rangers have the ball in certain areas and think, right, if you lose this, we'll break on you. And I just thought Rangers they had no idea how to break Celtic down. And it's a terrific effort from Ryan Jack that hits the bar. It's a great shot. But apart from that, they were so poor. And I've got a few Rangers mates that were really, really raging about their performance last night, and they're not overly impressed with Van Bronckhorst so far. It's still very early days, but last night, that'll be a reality check for them, because the way Celtic played last night, Rangers could not live with them.
I'm going to get you guys' thoughts on where Rangers go next from here, as well as Celtic. And I'm going to get your man of the match from last night. But there's someone we do have to talk about before we go any further, and that is the substitute for Celtic, 16-year-old Ben Doak, coming off the bench. Can he buy a carry-out? Can he buy cigarettes? Can he put a lottery on? But comes on and makes his second appearance against Rangers. And at one point, it looked as if he was going to dance through the whole Rangers defence and get right through on goal. Now he's got to come back this morning and probably had to go straight into double English. Where is the justice in that? Where is the justice? 16-year-old, Craig, what were you doing at 16-year-old? Are you allowed to say?
I can let Greg answer for that, because we were both doing the same thing at 16. But no, it's obviously I was like, you know, I was there seeing my big team on Saturday, and you know, the roar he got when he came off the bench was I mean, Greg and Graeme all know the same as me. You know, when a young player comes through at your club, you feel that extra wee bit of connection. And like we did the other night, obviously, with Dabrowski getting his debut, and we're all in tears watching his interview after the game. But I mean, 16-year-old, I mean, like you say, can he buy a carry-out? Can he buy couldn't even buy himself a sneaky packet of fags to enjoy after the game. But
Can't buy a can of Red Bull.
He was buzzing on water.
He left his mark on who was it? He got booked. He got booked? Was it maybe Sakala?
Yeah.
I think Sakala he tried to take a free kick and he maybe kicked the ball away. So, but no, 16-year-old, that must be some buzz. Like, imagine being that age and like making your. I mean, Colin, you'd probably 40 bits if you were to ever get the call for Ange to go on the pitch. But at 16-year-old, that must have been some buzz.
I'd look like Borna Barisic the way when Abada put the ball in the back of the net, except there'd literally be kind of liquid coming out. Paul Cockwell comes in to tell us it was actually double math that he had up first. So I don't know, what would be worse, double English, double maths? What would be the worst subject? Here's one. Well, this is a question that will never ever be asked. What is the worst double subject you could have went into after making an appearance in a Glasgow derby the night before?
Double maths.
Best answer wins absolutely no prize.
History, and it was talking about, I don't know, the Battle of 1690.
I was going to say maybe double P if he's because I know some of the referees. Can't remember the referee that's teaching through in one of the schools. It's the Rangers Performance School. Nick Walsh. So I imagine coming back into that, having Nick Walsh for a double period after making your debut at Celtic Park.
Go on, Graeme. What's the worst one he could have went into? Double what?
Oh, it's easily double maths. I mean, I think I'm the oldest person. I think I'm the oldest one on this thing, and it scares me to death how far ago that was.
Can you imagine him going like that, miss? What do I need to know trigonometry for? I can just put the ball in the back of the net. Do you know what I mean?
The only numbers you can are 84. My number for Celtic. That's all I need.
Put it this way, he'll never have to do any homework again. See if he needs any homework done. But look, I've got 2 tickets for the game on Saturday. Who's going to do my maths homework?
That's like, imagine the swagger of going into what was it you called the wee 10-minute period, Reggie, when you walk into Reggie. Imagine him, everybody's just waiting and seeing, and he just walks in like Conor McGregor, like waiting for a couple of Rangers fans in his clash, just like, morning boys.
I would love to know when Postecoglou told him he was going to be in the squad, because I mean, would he have told him the night before? Because that would have had him, I don't know, a nervous wreck the night before.
I mean, at 16, how much of a nervous wreck is he going to be? I mean, the boy's got a world at his feet right now. He can literally do anything.
Buzz, I think, like a total buzz. Like I've got, when I know I got my tickets to go to Tynecastle for a derby, that gives me a buzz because I kind of got tickets to get in. Like being that age and being told that you're on the bench, and even to get on as well. Like, that shows you how much Celtic took the urine last night, that they were able to chuck a 16-year-old on for 5 minutes at the end, just to edge it in that wee bit further.
I think it's taking the mickey there. I think it's actually he's a good enough player, and it kind of shows you he's probably made a bigger impact in that game than Rangers wingers in that in his fleeting cameo. So I think it's a good thing. Obviously, we know there's other players that are on loan from Celtic. Obviously, Liam Shaw, you've got Montgomery as well that's kind of went out. But I mean, I think I heard in commentary as well, Liverpool are seemingly after him as well. Have been inquiries. So listen, he's going to be a good prospect if these teams are going to come and try and make a bid, and hopefully for Scotland's sake he gets more first team football.
I mean, it is impressive that at 16 he still finds himself being taller than Giovanni van Bronckhorst, but that's not a very difficult scenario. I'm just glad he never got mixed up as a ball boy last night. But I'm going to just get a kind of quick answer from you guys before we kind of move on from this. But man of the match last night, it's very easy to give it to Reo Hatate. So if you do that, it's a lazy answer. Craig, I'm starting with you.
I think for... Can I give it to 2? Just for the way that Man United spent 37 million to send Ahmed Diallo up the road for him to be pocketed by Greg Taylor. Like, I'd probably say it'd be split, if we're not allowed to go for Hatate, split between, for me, Juranovic and Taylor.
You can go for Hatate if you want. I'm just saying it's a lazy answer.
I'm not lazy, Colin. That's not me. I'll let the 2 Jambos be the lazy ones. But no, I'd say it would be very close between Juranovic and Taylor for me.
It's interesting when you see the fullbacks being the man of the match, considering what Rangers' game was based on beforehand under Steven Gerrard. There was a lot of the fullbacks getting forward. The goals coming from James Tavernier, as you said, 15 last year. The crosses that come in and the amount of goals they got from that. But last night, the fact that they barely got over their own halfway line in the first half shows you how good a game Celtic's own fullbacks did have. Graeme, who was your man of the match last night?
I'm not going to be lazy. I'm going to give it to Juranovic. I thought he was fantastic last night. He really was. I think, again, Celtic have got another top-quality player there.
Yeah, I've been a massive fan of Josip Juranovic, and I like the fact that he's finally managed to get himself a song, and that is a lazy song, but it's a fantastic song at that. It is just simply Pitbull, and it's Fireball, and every time it says Fireball, it's just Josip Juranovic. And believe me, see, when you've had a couple, it is fantastic. Greg, who was your man of the match last night?
I'm not saying this because he's got the same first name as me, and I've been called a doppelganger for him a few times when I've been on, but Greg Taylor. I think when you consider it was at Kilmarnock under a Steve Clark, who was very kind of, his full-backs were defend first, get forward if you can, and then it's totally transformed their Andrew. He wants them to come into the centre of the pitch. And listen, I thought in terms of, I don't think his redemption story is kind of quite done, quite complete yet. But I think for me, he is the left back at this moment in time. The jersey's his. No Scales is there. Obviously, Bolingoli is floating around. I know Juranovic has played there at times, but Bolingoli's never going to get a seamless Celtic jersey again unless he goes, unless he's seen on holiday in Marbella with Celtic top on. But for me, Greg Taylor.
I'm going to give it to Josip Juranovic, and I just simply put a tweet out last night after the game finished saying, Josip Juranovic, that's it. That's the tweet. That's how good he was last night. It was effortless, and the fact is, he had a lot to prove because he ran his mouth before the game. He came out just basically saying Aaron Ramsey, average signing, just another game. We treat it like every other team in the league, yada yada. And if you're a Rangers player, you've got them words pinned up in the dressing room wall and saying, we're having a go at him. Ryan Kent could have ran at him all night. Didn't matter. Juranovic had him in his back pocket. And it must be very disappointing as a Rangers fan that he's basically been allowed to get away with it. It takes me back to the time where Mika Lustig basically stole the police officer's hat and was wearing it about Celtic Park. That is the kind of performance that you got from Juranovic last night, and he's settled into Scottish football so well, and he's just someone who absolutely gets what Celtic's about, and as a Celtic fan, it's delightful to see. And as you say, I think he's going to be one that, although he's 27 years old now, or 20, maybe 27, maybe a bit older, I've aged him there, but in a year or two time, you could see a big bid coming in for him, and he's probably not the only one in this Celtic team, Craig, that you could see in a couple of years' time, big bids coming in for, and that's testament to what Ange Postecoglou has been able to do in 6 short months.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Celtic fans will be very, very happy that Eddie Howe ended up saying no, because would you potentially be in the position that you're in already? I think the way that Celtic have recruited has been very, very smart in terms of, with Postecoglou, he's brought in Diogo, so you find it with these, certain foreign players who, when they come over, there's no one for them to sort of, settle in beside. Whereas Kyogo knows Postecoglou from managing in the same league. And then in the January, you bring in Maida, Hatate, and is it Ideguchi? Is that his name? Sorry if I've butchered that. But
sorry, we're still doing that as well. Don't worry about it.
So three, you're looking at it that Kyogo's came in and settled for 6 months. This is now going to help him settle even more, and in turn it helps the other 3 Japanese players settle. And if Celtic can go on and win the league, get into the group stages of the Champions League, that gives them an even bigger platform to perform in. So, if this is a market that Celtic are looking to exploit, you could easily see yourselves getting, in the tens of millions for Hatate, Maida, Kyogo, Juranovic, O'Reilly, depending, I'm not sure what age O'Reilly is.
21.
20, there you go. See, so you're almost at the beginning of this cycle again when there was players. I know he left for free, but if he was on a longer contract like Boyata, Dembele, Edward, these players that are coming in and having 2-3 good years and able to sell on for big money.
Yeah, definitely. And do you know, we don't know the finances of Rangers. We'll not pretend that we know either. But when you think of the outlay that was probably put out there for Amad Diallo and Aaron Ramsey, it can't be far off what they've got up front for Nathan Patterson. And that, for me, it's a short-term vision instead of having this kind of long-term vision, as you mentioned, about keeping this conveyor belt of talent going. I mean, they're never going to sign Diallo. They're never going to sign Ramsey at the end of the season. So then what happens if they don't win the league this year? That's a big £40 million prize they've lost out on. It's
fine, they'll just wind it up and start again like they did before. And we all know one thing we don't need is another Rangers.
Which incarnation would that be? We have 160 watching live. If you are watching live, give us a thumbs up on the video below. That really does help us. Leave a comment in the comment section. I'm just going to go through some of them so far. Studs Lanigan coming in and say big Colin for Greenock as top man. Thanks very much, Studs. I never said that deliberately. Tom Messi saying I'd share this video with my friends if I had any. Well, you've got 4 of us here. Shaky 1964 saying Tavernier and Barisic cannot play the way Van Bronckhorst plays. They're okay, but okay going forward, but cannot defend. I think we've already covered that. That was the way it was last night. We saw where they were getting exploited. Scott House says a shout out to the legendary Ball Boys. Like, if you've not seen that video, that was superb. Paul Cockwell, our resident High-B, coming in to say McGregor for me is man of the match. He also tells us that at 16 he had loads of birds because he was as good looking as Ronaldo.
That's hibbies for you. We're a good looking bunch.
You're also very good at lying as well, to be fair. Niall the Pump coming in to say, and just showing there's a pathway for youngsters to the first team. I've got to say that is something that, as a Celtic fan, we've definitely not seen a lot of, especially under Neil Lennon. There wasn't a lot of youngsters getting given that chance, especially not at 16 years old. Karamoko Dembele being the one where you'd think they've been talking about him for ages, get him in the first team. Sean Curran saying the worst that you could have went into today was double English with Frank McAvenny as your teacher. And Niall the Punk also coming in to say Eddie Who. Look, lads, we've kind of covered the game pretty in depth. There's also been a Celtic state of mind for anyone who missed it at 12:30. So if you did miss that, then you can see JP and PJ, which is the Thursday lineup. You can go and check them out and see what their reaction was to the game. But there was other news in Scottish football which we really should cover tonight, and that is the news that Raith Rovers have looked to have reversed their decision, although I don't know how you can possibly do that, to sign David Goodwillie. It looks as if he will be leaving the club once they've sorted out his contract situation. Now, for me, it's just a complete and utter farce of a situation. They've paid Clyde the best part of 6 figures to bring him in. They're paying him what we understand to be £1,200 a week, and that's been covered by an outside company as well. Raith Rovers have lost their main shirt sponsor, their away shirt sponsor. They've lost their supporters liaison officer. They've lost their women's team. They've lost all the kind of banners around the stadium. They've all pulled out. They've lost directors. This is a club, to me, who they genuinely did think that making this signing would be something that would just completely blow over after a couple of days. But then once you get the First Minister of Scotland speaking on it, and it's in every single newspaper, there is absolutely nowhere they can go. Graeme, this is a club, to me, who made a terrible decision, doubled down on it, realised the consequences, and now are saying, please, please, please forgive us. And see if you've got any decency as a football fan. Even if you're a Raith supporter for your whole life, it would take so much more than that for me to ever go back to Starks Park. That is the worst decision potentially ever made in Scottish football.
I cannot give any credit to Raith Rovers for backing down on this, because it should never have happened in the first place. It was an absolutely disgraceful decision to do what they did. I feel so sorry for the folk at Raith, the genuine good folk at Raith Rovers. I think fair play to Tyler Rattray for what she did out of principle. Val McDermott, the thing is, Val McDermott had said weeks ago what would happen if they signed him, and they went and did it anyway. They obviously don't care what folk think. The fact they've now said, oh, do you know what, we made a terrible decision. You made a terrible decision doing it in the first place. I feel so sorry for the good folk of Raith Rovers, and I think there'll be a lot of Raith Rovers fans that even now will not go back, even though they've backed out, because it should never have happened in the first place. Hearts had John McGlynn we had John McGlynn at Hearts, and I wasn't a massive fan of him as a manager, but I respected him. I've lost all respect for him for the fact that he obviously wanted to sign Goodwilly. Why on earth he thought it was a good idea, I have no idea. Why the folk at Raith Rovers who backed this decision thought it was a good idea, I have no idea. The folk at Raith Rovers who have said, nah, this isn't right. Respect to them, respect to Tyler Rattray, Val McDermott and everyone else there. But it was an absolutely terrible decision, and I'm sorry, but any respect I had for Raith Rovers has long gone after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a decision that never, ever made any sense. Raith being such a community-based club, they are the sort of, they're the part of the community in Kirkcaldy. It's, if you're in Kirkcaldy, you bring your family along, you go to Raith Rovers. It's not just like a Celtic or Rangers or Hibs or Hearts where you can get fans coming from all over. Most of the fan base is born and bred in Kirkcaldy, and they've known for weeks, as you said, because they've been interested in him in a long time, what the consequences could be for signing him. And Greg, it doesn't seem to have hit home what was actually going to happen when they done it. And the ones that actually come out of this looking a bit better for it, and it's probably the only time we'll ever say it this season, is Falkirk, because Falkirk pulled out the transfer of him. I mean, Falkirk, as much as a shambles they've been, at least they knew not to sign him.
Yeah, I think Falkirk are now setting their sights on Lee Griffiths, who there's a headline in there itself. Yeah, there's a headline in that itself. But I think it shouldn't be forgotten. My heart kind of goes out to the victim of all this, Denise Clare, who it's coming back up again. And I know people are saying, where was the fury and uproar 5 years ago when he played for Clyde? There was, but I think as you're saying, Raith Rovers, or Rovers as they're known in Kirkcaldy, it is the lifeblood of the community. Even during the sort of, lockdown period as well, they've done a lot in the community. They've provided meals. It was a real sort of respite. 50 volunteers, including the Raith TV, who is kind of widely regarded as one of the best free-to-air highlights package, interview package as well. They've all up and left. You've got, I believe, like the mascot and whatever else. So there's 50 volunteer staff. So I mean, there is genuine concerns that they might not have enough sort of staff to put on the game at the weekend because they're all away. And listen, John McGlynn, as you said, they are. In terms of the uproar, Val McDermott, I kind of said it before as well, that she's again essentially been sponsoring them since Clough. Her dad was a scout with Jim Baxter as well. So when you look at that kind of history, it's just it really grates. And I know there's a lot of viewers here. I've had that last season even with Celtic as well, that you're not listening to your fans. Eventually, that there has been change, but. If I'm a Raith Rovers fan, it's still raw, because you want the chairman away, you want the board of directors that kind of almost were kind of yes men in this to vote this through. And you're right, Colin, it would take a kind of lot to let the dust settle and even go back to it. But I'm kind of glad that in a way that he's not going to be turning out for Raith Rovers. But it was just so ill-conceived an idea and notion of signing him in the first place.
Craig, who takes the responsibility for this one? Is it the board of directors? Is it the manager? Is it the scouting system? Who takes the fall eventually for this? Because Raith Rovers fans will want to know when the change is coming and who is going to come in. And to me, it looks as if it's going to need to be ripped out from top to bottom.
I don't think there's any one. I mean, I believe there was something in the statement that when they announced the signing, and then, they came up with they done the Limmy, don't back down, double down, kind of with a follow-up statement saying that David is Raith, because I think McGlynn in his first spell actually had him on loan for Dundee United. So, there's a horrible end to this as well, is that now that Goodwilly's actually going to benefit probably quite well financially for the fact that he's likely going to get a severance package, which is, you know, it's a horrible irony is maybe not the right word, but for, you know, for the way for this to end, but heads need to roll for the top to the bottom. Like Graham says, Val McDermott made it very clear. I'm sure she said it something along the lines of, the thought of David Goodwillie in a Raith strip makes me sick. I know that's what she said when the signing was announced, but she said something not too dissimilar when there was rumours that it was happening. And I just find the whole situation very unsavoury, especially with the what's going on in England with Mason Greenwood. You know, that I suppose that's another story completely, but you know, I just don't get it. And like Greg says, you know, at the end of the day, folk can say, all these Raith Rovers fans can be upset and aggrieved, and rightly so, but we should never forget that there's an innocent lady, you know, that suffered severe life-changing consequences because of what David Goodwillie and David Robertson decided to do all those years ago. I just, like I say, the whole, it's very, very unsavoury. And what I also don't agree with is Nicola Sturgeon coming out and commenting on it. I don't see why she, for her to come out and say, why do the SPFL need to look into this? He's been playing in the SPFL for the last 6 years. You know, this has now became not a moral situation for that thing, but also a political, because Val McDermott's quite good pals with Nicola Sturgeon, I'm led to believe. So, you know, there should be no politicising of this whatsoever. Raith Rovers have made the mistake. One, they've been punished because they've had to give, like you say, Clyde 6 figures for him. So, you know, in a way, it's kind of like get it up them for losing out on that money. They've also damaged their reputation as a community club. This could take years for them to recover. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you know, what should never ever be forgotten is that, like I said, there's an innocent person at the end of this who this could have brought up so many bad memories. You know, this could have been such a trigger for something bad that could have happened. Something bad could happen to her now, you know, for these having to relive this and all these flashbacks. So, as Greg says, our thoughts remain, you know, with the victim, but for all around, top to bottom, Raith Rovers, they need gutted, because it's embarrassing. It's shameful. Like you say, Colin, it's quite possibly one of the worst decisions that's ever been made in Scottish football.
See, when you look at it, and everyone will know or will have heard a story about a young girl or a young woman out on a night out who has ended up amongst the wrong crowd, or something has happened to them, and there hasn't been enough evidence to convict on any sort of count, whether it be that they've been assaulted, whether it be that they've been drug raped, whether it be that they've been had their drink spiked, whatever it may be. And there's so many young women out there who are petrified on a night out, and then they see someone like David Goodwillie who can earn more than what they would earn for kicking a ball about, showing absolutely no remorse for what he's done, not even tried to sort of even like, I don't know what he could have done, but whether just show some remorse, show some respect for the fact that you've done wrong. And he's not the only one. There is far, far, far too many people involved in Scottish football right now who have done something similar in the past that we need to root out of the game. David Goodwillie is only the start of this problem. Craig Thompson, who was let go at Hearts, still playing in the lower leagues. We spoke about the Lee Griffiths scenario. Mason Greenwood, who's not involved in Scottish football, but there's every chance, I guarantee when he comes out, there'll be a team desperate to pick him up. It can't come down to the talent these players have. Once you've made the mistake, you've made the mistake, and there is no getting back. It doesn't matter how good a footballer you are. You have to take the punishment that's given to you. And if we continue in Scottish football to give these guys a route back in, then what does that say to your sisters, your friends, your daughters, your nieces, what does it say to them that these guys can get caught out for what they're doing and still go on to live a far more luxurious lifestyle than what you could ever do? It's right what you guys are saying. the victim in this has to be the person that is thought of, and not the fact of, oh well, David Goodwillie's not going to have a team come the end of the week. And I feel as if that's just the approach that not a lot of the press are focusing on. It's just focusing on the fact that Raith signed him. And to me, that it does make you feel sick at times.
One thing I will also add, though, is that it does go to show that, you know, despite how, as we've seen with the Super League debacle down in England, that fans are the most important part of any club. Because I know that Sean McGuigan spoke very passionately about not going. I mean, we've all seen Sean on the telly, View for the Terrace, and he's spoken. You know, he's quite open about the fact that he's a Raith fan. He's been a Raith fan all these days, and even he's publicly saying, "I'm not going back." You know, this shows you that the power still remains with us when it comes to, you know, these decisions being made at our clubs and the potential life-changing decisions that can be made at these clubs as well. And
this probably comes across quite ironic, or whatever you'd like to call it, coming from four I say middle-aged, we're not middle-aged yet, we're getting there, but four older men. If you are on a night out and you see anything happening, please stop it. Please stop whatever. If you see something happening, get involved to stop it, because you never know. At the end of the day, if you let something go, you might see it in the paper 6 months later, and you just think you could have done something that day. Just keep yourself safe. Be nice to everybody. We've got no reason to ever get ourselves into this situation. We should do a lot better as a society. I want to finish on a happier note, because that doesn't feel like something we should finish on. So let's look ahead to the weekend very quickly. Let's look at Rangers versus Hearts. Jam Tarts, can you continue this terrible run of form for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst? Quick answer. I'll start with Graeme.
I'm going to be positive. Yes, of course we can.
You can. Greg?
Genuinely, I think we will. I think John Suter will also play. He'll also be hoping to see if he can cancel a pre-contract agreement to Rangers and see if Ange and doesn't get Carter Vickers, whatever. But I genuinely think Hearts can win.
And Craig, is Sean Maloney's bad run going to come to an end this weekend against St Mirren?
I hope so. I certainly hope so. We need it. I just want us to score a goal. I want us to score a goal.
And I'm hoping that by 2:00 on Sunday afternoon, Celtic will be 4 points clear. What a turnaround that will have been since we made sure that the winter break get brought forward just to help us out. Ladies and gents, it has been a pleasure to bring you the state of Scottish football this evening here with myself, Graeme, Craig and Greg. It's been great to look back on last night's victory for Celtic. We'll be back tomorrow night. We're not sure who the lineup will be, but they will be previewing another fantastic, exciting weekend of cinch. Who doesn't love it? Do you know what? It's all about the cinch. Ever since cinch came in, things just got so much more tasty.
It's all about the cinch, baby.
Oh, we're cinching it up. Thank you to everyone who got involved in the comment section. It's been great to have you here. Do, as I said, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and share the video with your friends. Until then, as we said, stay safe and take care.